Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Carpe Diem Living, the podcast. I am your host, Shane Gitmed, and today we have a wonderful woman by the name of Tracey. And the coolest part that I learned before this interview is that she's in Indonesia. And I am just trying to think, like, how does one end up in a whole other country? And oh my gosh, I'm so curious. So, Tracey, without further ado, please share your story.
Well, thank you so much, Shane. Thank you for having me. It's such a great pleasure to meet you and to talk with your people. So I'm a single mom. My daughter's now 19. And when she was probably 10, I think she was in 5th grade, we discovered this really cool school that happened to be on the island of Bali in Indonesia called Green School. And so I would say to everyone listening, like, it is worth Googling and just the visual, all the school structures are made with bamboo and a traditional building style. There are no walls. It's all open, so there can be natural airflow, and it's really great. But my daughter had just started a charter Waldorf school, so it's free. You know, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to a private school halfway around the world when she's in a free school that she loves.
Right.
But that school only went till 8th grade. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, well, she'd go to high school there. Mm-hmm. And so when she was in 8th grade, we went to visit. I had already spent a lot of time in Indonesia because I'd lived in Japan before, and then spent a lot of time in Asia. And I knew I loved it, but my daughter is very much an observer. I'm the extrovert. She's the introvert. Mm-hmm. And so she is a keen observer. And I thought, if she's ever going to seriously get on board with this trip or this move, we have to go for her to see it. Mm-hmm. And we went, and she's like, I am so not going to this school. No way. And I, of course, was in love with the school. I'm like, oh my gosh, I would go back to school here. Right. And then we just decided, I'm like, well, you know what? We've been talking about moving for the last 3 or 4 years. We're going to move anyway. And she ended up kind of unschooling and what I call world schooling, because we did a lot of traveling as well. Mm. And when we first landed in Bali, I said, well, we'll be here for a year. Because I didn't want to hear any whining or moaning. But by the time we moved, she was actually fully on board. And she was so excited. We'd been living in Portland, Oregon, and she was just ready for something different. Mm. And then after a year, she was kind of like, oh, I think I want a city and blah, blah, blah. And then actually we had to go back to the U.S. for family and, health issues. And so we were there for a little bit, and then we were both just itching to get back here.
Wow.
And then we were here for another while, and she's like, oh, I think city. And we went to Tokyo for a few months. I lived in Japan before. And after 2.5 months, we're like, oh no.
It's too much.
And yeah. But we had already planned a visa run to the Philippines. So we went to the Philippines, and we were going to originally go back to Tokyo to get 3 more months there. And we decided no. And then we came back to Bali, and that was last year. And we moved now. We're actually on the island of Sumbawa. So it's 2 islands east of Bali. And it's very quiet, very remote. We're living just in the midst of nature. Uh-huh. And I imagine someday we'll probably build a house here or something, But so here we are. And now she's like, I don't think I ever want to leave. I'm like, what? We have the whole world to explore still. And she's like, well, yeah, I want to travel a little, but I think this is my home.
Oh my goodness. First of all, that is so amazing that you guys had the opportunity to kind of see, where do you feel like it's home? You know, that is, to me, honestly, that's a very big deal. I'm very much I'm a, what's the word? I'm an earth, that earth type of person where I care about my home, my space.
Yes.
I need to feel grounded, put my roots in. And honestly, for the last 9 years of my life, I've had to move countless times back and forth due to family relocation because of career. And even now I'm just kind of like, I really just want to set my roots down. So I am so happy that you guys are finding like, okay, this is where we're at. We love it here. And you get to wake up in paradise every day. Not everyone can say that, you know? And I mean, there's people that pay so much money to like vacation there, and you guys just get to live there. Like, you know, that's an amazing opportunity. Wow. Well,
and I've really learned this. You know, I'm originally from Chicago, so I grew up with those 4 seasons. But when Maya was born, my daughter, like literally, it was her first birthday, and I took out the map, and I'm like, I have got to get out of here, you know? Because I knew I'd been living overseas for 6 years, and I knew that Chicago was not my place, but it was my home, and I was coming back as a single mom. You know, so I'm like, I wanted that support. I wanted to be around my people, you know, but I knew it wasn't the long-term answer. I didn't think it was. I was open to it. I'm like, we'll see what happens. But now, first birthday, pulled out the map. I was looking for something more. I'm also like you. I'm an earth person. I needed more green. I needed more outdoor connection. You know, I lived in the heart of Chicago. You know, there's... I didn't want to raise my child there, you know, and we ended up moving to Portland, Oregon, which was the best decision. It so resonated culturally with us. Like it was, and it was a beautiful place to raise her. I feel like we were there in its heyday. So, yeah, as you know, it's a bit chaotic now.
Yeah. Oh my God. And it's crazy.
But the climate, no to that climate. Right. But I mean, even my mom, my parents would come and visit, and she would say to Maya, like, I don't know how your mom is still here. She is a sunshine person.
Yeah.
You know, like, but I loved the city, and I loved the people there, and I just loved, you know, I always said it was such a great place to raise a child, because it was a city where it was so much of like live and let live. And that was so important to me. You know, my dad, whenever they would get into town, he'd be like, oh, some girl with a really bright pink wig on. And my mom's just laughing. She's like, honey, that's not a wig. That's her hair. You know, like they were so Midwestern and conservative, and not outrageously conservative, but very basic principles of living. And like our world was so woo-woo crazy for them. But they still came 3 times. I mean, they spent a quarter of the year with us.
Oh my gosh.
Visiting.
They must have to some degree.
Well, we moved so far away, and they would drive to visit. And they're like, well, we're not driving that far to just be there for a week or 2. And so then they would stay for a month. And it was so great. Like we moved farther away from my parents and had more quality time with them.
Oh, like nice.
It was really beautiful. So we loved our time in Portland, but like now being here, I see so much that importance of like finding your place. Like this is my paradise. And even the weather, like I thought I always loved hot weather, but I thought I liked hot and dry. I love hot and humid. Who knew?
Wow.
Love it. And I have goosebumps right now, actually. And it's probably in the low 80s, but it's dry season. And so the humidity goes down to maybe 70%. Okay. But it's also windy season. And so it's a cool breeze, and that's what's making me cold. And it's ridiculous how we've acclimated.
Yeah.
So like it probably took us less than 6 months to fully acclimate.
Wow.
You know, but anyway, this is our space. And I do believe like, it's not just the climate, but the culture and that environment. And it's something I feel like it's not often acknowledged when we look at holistic health.
True.
Right? How important it is to like of course you need to find your people, right? We know we need to find our healthy routines, but we don't often talk about finding our place. I mean, and I do feel like it is a bit of a luxury, you know, like you follow your work, but I'm self-employed, so I can be anywhere.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So that's one of the many joys and beauties of self-employment.
Oh my gosh. No, I can definitely resonate with that, because it wasn't until 3 years ago that I was able to start being able to choose where I wanted to live. Because, and I call it, it's funny. I almost said past life, but it's not really a past life. It literally was just like another part of my life, but it almost feels that way because like the season I'm in, it feels like that old life was like so long ago almost. Like it doesn't even feel like, you know what I'm saying? Like
I totally know.
Yeah. And because I was a military spouse, so you don't have to stay on where you live. You have to move whenever they tell you to move. And being born and raised in California, that, of course, that's all I knew. And when I moved because of my spouse. And I mean, there's a lot of things that we do for, your family, you sacrifice, but at the same time, throughout those years, there was only one place that I truly felt like I felt like a home, and that was in Georgia. And it's funny because the climate there is humid, and I never thought I would like humidity because I'm in California, it's dry, that's what I'm used to. But I got acclimated to Georgia humidity and weather, and I loved it. So many people that knew me there just told me, like, you glowed when you lived there because you finally felt like you found your place. So when it was time that I had to leave that home, and I loved the home that we built and bought, and, I finally felt like this is me. Like, this home is like an extension of my spirit. So I was crushed when I was like, darn it, I only had 3 years to enjoy it. I'm thankful for the 3 years, but I feel like I just feel like there's a part of me that's still there, and I'm just like, one day, like, I would love to retire in that area. But that's one thing that we really don't really acknowledge or talk about is like finding your place. And because you're in a different mindset too when you find that spot. And a lot of people don't realize, like, just because you're born somewhere in the world doesn't mean you have to stay there. You could totally go on your own somewhere else. And self-employment gives us that gift. Thank goodness.
Yeah. Well, and nowadays also, I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens like post all of this corona, because so many people have been forced to work from home online. How will that even shift for the regular, like workforce?
Right.
It's, and what will that open up for people?
Right. Yeah. I'm even noticing that with my own community. So I'm in Silicon Valley, which is the heart of tech. All the latest things get, brought here, they get started here. And a lot of people that are in that industry that, they are actually trying to relocate because they're like, okay, well, if I can take my remote job now and take my skills anywhere, they're trying to move towards the east where it's cheaper and it's not so expensive. Because they're like, why stay in California where I'm paying premium? And it's not like I really have to be here because I can do my work on my computer. So that's the most interesting thing that I'm noticing too, with what's going on in the world. And I wish it was easy to travel right now because I would, if I could, I would get the heck out of here, at least like go somewhere tropical where you're at.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, yeah.
Well, I know they're hoping to open the borders here in September 11th, actually, of all dates. I'm like, well, I'll remember that date. They're hoping to open Indonesia. It's open now for domestic travel. And so they're kind of seeing how that goes, I guess. But, we've not been hit nearly like, the U.S. is out of control,
right?
Because Indonesia is like this hugely populous country. We have like almost 300 million people, I think 275, 280. Yeah, we're right behind the U.S. We're the fourth populous country in the world. And they just reached 100,000 cases like recently in the last few weeks. Total. I don't remember how many people have died, but not
the same. Yeah. Oh.
I mean, we don't even have the number of cases that are deaths in the U.S. So
there's no real data.
No.
Really.
I mean, and here where we're living, it's there are only like hotels and tourists in this area because it's a surfing spot.
Oh, okay.
And so there are surfers here, but they're not here now. But beyond that, the strange feeling of like no tourists here, it's life as normal.
Wow. That's good. You're very, very lucky.
Very.
Drastically changed around here. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Like when you live in a busy city that's normally, you feel like it's overpopulated because there's constant traffic. Yeah. Everyone's kind of like in this hustle and bustle mood all the time. And then all of a sudden it's stopped. You would almost think like an apocalypse happened in my area. And like oh my gosh, I would die to be in a place like where you're at, where my toddler son, who's 3, all he wants to do is run free, being in the nature. Like, he's a very free-spirited person. And I know he would really benefit from going to a school where he can be out in the open. Yes. He can play with, things that are nature, like he doesn't have to be stuck in the house, with nothing much to do. And I mean, honestly, I have mom guilt about it, but it's not like I can control. It's not like what else. I'm doing the best job I can do right now, also being a single mother. So man, oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's all you can do. It's hard. And that mom guilt is real, and it's true, and it's a challenge. Right. I know that was my biggest challenge when I was working, when I started going beyond just, because I still am teaching English online because I love it. I do the things I love. Life is too short to be doing something I don't love.
Right.
And so, and I have only like private students. So I get paid a little bit of money to meet really cool people around the world. Right. Okay.
That's great. Yeah.
I've always been internationally focused. I mean, clearly I'm living over here. And it's just fun, but that was my main job when I was, my daughter was born. It allowed me just barely to stay home and be with her. Mm-hmm. And then when we moved to Portland, one of the great things about that move was like, I knew I was going to start working in holistic health, but I didn't know exactly how. Mm. And the great thing was I didn't have to decide. Yeah. There were like 3 massage schools, a naturopathic school, a chiropractic school, an acupuncture school, a culinary school. Like, there were all of these things. I'm like, all right, I can move and I'll decide when I get there.
Right. No need to rush, because when you rush, that's when you don't end up following what you're supposed to be doing in your life.
Exactly.
And then you're like, and then you get upset later because you're like, why did I waste time doing that? Or I feel like more people need to apply that. Like, if you don't love what you're doing, take a couple steps back and think to yourself, like, where do I feel called? Where do I feel that sense of, belonging? That is so, so important to do. Otherwise, it just doesn't resonate, and who knows what will happen next. So, yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that.
Right. Well, because we all have these unique gifts, right? And you're happy when you're sharing your gift because it's easy and it's fun and it's natural. And if you're not sharing your gift, there's at least one person in the world that is just waiting and missing. There's at least one, but we know in reality there are so many more than just they're just one. Right. But it's and I honestly believe, like, for me, it has to be my work, right? Mm-hmm. I know there are other people who go with other philosophies. Actually, I'm talking to my group about this now. We're working in career and, talking about that this month. There are people who intentionally choose to do a career they don't love, but they're very good at and make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But then that philosophy works well if you then have time to follow what you love.
Right.
But I know so often, we know the reality of the world, especially in the US.
Right.
It is so busy, it is so demanding and so stressful that then you don't have the time or the energy. Even if you have the time, you're just wiped out and you have to recharge.
Right.
And because you can share your gifts, through volunteering or with your family and friends. It doesn't have to be official.
Right.
Right. I mean, because I know before I officially and professionally became a holistic health coach, I've been sharing this gift for decades, since probably high school or college, with family and friends.
Yeah.
I don't know why it never hit me to do it as a job. I guess I was a little slow, wasn't so aware and connected and conscious.
Right.
Yeah. I was doing, I know I was doing the things I thought I should do, and I was shitting on myself, and I'm like, oh no.
Right.
Stop that.
Right. Well, seriously, our whole society, no, I'm not going to say whole, but a good chunk of our society kind of programs us and teaches us, like, even if you don't love what you're doing and you probably will regret working that job for 20 years, at least you were able to pay for XYZ. But then you're away from your family. And then you're like, wow, I can't even take vacation when I want. Or you get sick because you're overworked. It's just kind of like this toxic working, mentality we have. And I'm so thankful that I found, the holistic lifestyle, like all the I feel like the universe purposely sent me each person over time to kind of keep directing me in the way I was supposed to go. Otherwise, I would have just stayed a workaholic that was just doing things that I didn't love, but it gave me money. So I was like, okay, what the heck? Like, I'm so glad I didn't spend a lot of my life doing that. Yeah.
I was in corporate America for 6 years.
Oh, see.
And for me, it was actually interesting because I was always learning. It was my first job out of college. So I was, overqualified. So it was easy to kind of take those steps and climb the ladder. And I love learning. One of my passions, which is why I feel like coaching is like kind of like teaching. There's it's a mentoring, but there's education. And I feel like all of my work is kind of education based. It's like information and inspiration is how I think about it. Yeah. And that gets me super excited. And so I was always learning, but then I just hit this point and I'm like, it was not satisfying in the slightest. The learning was fun and exciting, but I quickly mastered it, moved on. And I'm just like, and I was in my late 20s and I had this vision of like, is this going to be my life? Am I going to be like 60 or 70 years old and have grandkids and think, this is it? And I'm just like,
your purpose.
And then that's when I quit my job and moved to Japan. And just because I wanted to live overseas, I had traveled all over North America and Europe and, and I loved that, but I'd never been to Asia and I never lived somewhere. I'd spent 3 months somewhere. I'd spent longer period of times, but I hadn't lived somewhere.
Wow.
And I learned that not only do I love traveling, I love living somewhere even more.
Yeah. And that's so bold. The fact that you were just like, I'm done. I'm going to start a new life. Like, not a lot of people have the guts to do that. A lot of people are just so scared. They have all these, doubts and the list can go on. But I love that you just took control of your life.
No, like, confession, it took probably 3 years for me to do it. I knew I wanted to do it, but getting that courage, right? It took that. And really it was something that happened at work where there was a possibility that I could maybe go to Hong Kong and work in our Hong Kong office.
Yeah.
But it was a small possibility. But that put the idea in my head, I think of like, well, you could go to Asia, right? And then I didn't get that, which was a blessing.
Yeah.
And then I just said, and I made a ridiculous choice. I'm like, well, in Japan, they like to dress nice. And, this was in the 80s where, like corporate America was still, getting really dressed up. And I really liked that. I thought that was fun.
Yeah.
And now, no, I wear flip-flops if I wear any shoes, and I'm always in a dress because it's just comfortable. And that's what I do. But I liked getting dressed up. Oh, and I was a big partier in my 20s. Like people who know me now were like, but you're so healthy. I'm like, oh no, in my 20s, I was party central.
You got it out of your system.
They like to party in Japan. They like to drink. I like to drink. Okay, that's where I'm going. That's how I chose my location.
Wow. I'm thinking like maybe you transferred your job or like all this, and it was about the party.
I'm like, I get to dress up. I get, and so but I had no idea what I was going to do. I'm like, I used to teach aerobics. Like I taught aerobics in college. I could do that. I knew enough Japanese, like left, right, for 1, 2, 3. Like I could learn, and I'm sure I could learn whatever the base, like I could teach aerobics. I could teach English because I had already started doing that in Chicago as a volunteer. And I could teach English, and I had another job I thought I could do, but I didn't know what it was. But actually when I got there, because I used to work in this bank. So funny. I'm so not the banking girl. That we had an office in Tokyo, and I actually had worked in international. So was moving people all over the world. So I went in, I knew most of the expats there, but I got to meet the local staff I was working with, and they offered me a job. And it was really like, I had to make that call, and I'd be like, no, thank you, but no, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, I left this world for a reason. It's not going to be any different.
Right.
In another country,
just
so
continuing. Right.
Yeah. And getting a job was really easy as an English teacher. So
yeah, we don't even realize how powerful that one position is when you go to another country. Because of course, for us speaking English, it's like, yes, that's our language. But like even now, I'm sure you've seen it where people are teaching like Chinese students online how to speak English. And now it's becoming such a normal thing. And I'm so glad. I'm like, great, you're giving parents, especially because that's the main group that teaches these kids is parents at home that want to make money while they're taking care of their family. So yeah, I love that it's becoming more of a thing. One really interesting thing I have to ask you about when it comes to your bio is clearing money clutter. So can you tell us about what that is? I was racking my brain like I was kind of, I'm pretty smart, but I was like, I don't know. Can you tell us about what that means?
Yeah. So I'm a sacred money archetype coach.
Wow.
And it's really about reworking your relationship with money. And actually, I haven't scheduled it yet. This is one of my tasks for today. Saturday is my like planning, thinking, creative work day where I don't usually meet with clients, but I reserve like my afternoons for that. And so today I'm actually scheduling and plotting out my, but I'm going to be doing at least one webinar on this idea of clearing money clutter. Just like we all know about the importance of clearing the clutter in our home, right? I mean, and we have feng shui if you want to get really specific,
right?
And it's the same is true with our money, right? And I know I've been through all kinds of phases with money myself, just like you were talking about how we have these life phases and like that old part of you seems so long ago, or you were so different and it can be so distant, but it was a part of you. The same thing can happen with money, and not for everyone. Like some people have one way of operating with money their whole life. And we do have strong ways of being with money. But I know I've been certainly through different phases with money. And I have had phases of avoidance, right?
Yeah.
And especially when you're in that kind of phase, money can get really cluttered. But you don't even have to be in avoidance to have clutter. It could be, when you find, I did this once, I found a check in my basement, an unfinished basement where it ended up being a dumping ground. Somebody had written me a check like 6 years ago. And I find this check. Now that's money clutter.
Yeah.
Right?
Like literally clutter. It's paper.
Literally.
It is just in there.
And it just got lost in the pile. But also like simple ways you might find money clutter is like when you find that $20 bill or that $5 bill in a pocket, and maybe it's your winter coat from last year.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that money's just like, that's like energy that's going, cluttered energy. And so we talk about how can you consolidate and kind of clean up that money clutter to have money, because money is just energy,
right?
And it's how is it flowing? And so if you have a little bit here, a little bit there, and so we tap into different areas and different ways that you can find money clutter and how you can clean it up.
Wow.
And it's amazing sometimes just doing something really simple like that can help your flow of money.
Right. Right. Yeah. Like it's almost like if you don't realize that you're handling it like not properly because it is energy, you're blocking yourself from receiving.
Exactly. Right. And also we can be also, kind of frugal if we're overly frugal and not wanting to give our money out. I mean, I grew up, my dad used to call himself the king of the Bohemians, and he loved being cheap.
Oh my gosh.
It's so funny because he was like cheap, but at the same time, he was outrageously generous with his family and friends. So it wasn't that he was always super cheap, but like with everyday, he was a guy who was quantity, not quality.
Okay.
And I live completely opposite. My family's like, where did you come from? I am all about quality. And they're just like, you're wasting your money on all this organic food. And I'm like, no, it's an investment in me, but it's not even about me. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's the planet.
Yep.
It's the farmers. It's our water system. It's the earth. You know, like there is so much more to this organic movement than getting more nutrients, right? Or being healthy. It's, you know, and that's my brain thinks this way. And then that's why I'm a holistic health coach, right?
Right.
Seeing the big picture.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I've had, especially when I started doing more holistic nutrition, more holistic, just in general, I remember that people would question me. They're just like, is it even worth it? You know, why spend an extra couple dollars for this organic blueberries and not this one? I'm like, it's the quality. Like you are getting your money's worth, because if you waste, you know, a couple dollars cheap. Okay. So say like I bought the cheaper version, but I'm putting that into my body. I'm causing more harm than good. So in a way, that money is a waste still. You know, it's just kind of like, why would you do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and my mom, even my daughter, when she went to kindergarten, my sister was going like, she's going to be the only nutritionist in her class. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but she has to eat every day. So she needs to make a choice about what she's putting into her body.
Right.
You know, I tried empowering her at a young age, you know, and it was actually when she went to school in the beginning, not her preschool, because her preschool was a Waldorf school, and they totally organic, super healthy snacks. They ate lunch at school. It was great. But her first school was a language immersion program. And this was more like mainstream school. And these kids are like, why are you eating all those vegetables? Like suddenly she didn't like vegetables because the kids in school were telling her like wasn't good to eat vegetables, that they were disgusting. Yeah. And I'm like, so suddenly at 5, I had to start playing games to get her to eat her vegetables, where that was never a problem before. But my mom heard my sister and I, you know, talking about this, and she's like, wait, Tracey, you know, you ate all those foods. And I'm like, no, Mom, foods have gotten considerably more toxic in the last 20, 30 years. They're using so many more pesticides, and the whole farming industry has changed.
Right.
Yeah, no, it wasn't phenomenal when I was a kid.
Right.
But it's toxic now.
Right. And you don't want to be, you know, the type that buys all the norm brands, and then you find out, oh, this actually causes cancer, or, oh, there's formaldehyde. And you're just like, what? Like and at this point, it's been like years since you've been consuming it. And that's why I tell my mom, you know, because sometimes she feels really bad when she finds out like, oh, this brand, you know, had this ingredient in there or this. I'm like, don't feel bad. You didn't know.
No.
You know, like back then we're lucky we have the knowledge and the resources now to, you know, to protect the new generation. But back then it's like, you just trusted these common brands and you thought you were doing the right thing. So yeah, no, absolutely. I totally get that. So
yeah,
and, you know, I just remembered, so you know how you were saying with your daughter's school, like, all of a sudden she didn't like her, you know, her normal nutritionist stuff. So there's a I don't remember the name of it, but my son watches this one of his shows. It's his favorite. It's like on YouTube. And there's a song where they're talking about food, and this, I'm not going to sing it, but that's like, do you like broccoli? And then some of them will say, yes, I do. Yes, I do. And towards the end, there'll be a kid that'll say, yuck. And you think like, it's kind of like putting it in their mind that vegetables aren't good. Why would you make a song that's planting a seed in these children's minds that fruits and veggies are not that important, or that they're not essential to your health? Like it's almost like an option, and it's like, oh. So it's little things like that that you catch. And so when I saw that, I was like, whenever I start even hear the melody of that song, I'm like, nope, we're switching it to something else. Like, I do not need him thinking broccoli is bad or that carrots aren't good. Like, it's just terrible. I'm like, what? Why would they do that?
Right. For sure. For sure.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So yeah, I was just so fascinated with your money clutter. I just had to ask.
It's fun and it's simple and it actually feels good to do it.
Yeah.
You know, because you see all these little things that you really never saw before or thought about before.
Right.
And they're easy things to implement in your everyday life, you know? Mm-hmm. And so it's a fun, easy game changer. But yeah, I'm going to be doing a couple of free webinars. I'm going to schedule it out today, later today. So I can certainly keep you posted and let you know when I'll be doing those.
Absolutely. I want to tune in because honestly, so I've gotten really good at manifesting money, which, okay, wonderful. And I really did have to clear like limiting beliefs and kind of things that I was conditioned to just know about money growing up. So I'm glad I got that out of the way. But I definitely would love to learn more on what else can you do to make sure you don't have that money clutter in your life, and how it's a journey. So there's always things you can work on. So I'm definitely interested in the webinar, and we'll definitely let our listeners know on that webinar series. But yeah, Tracey, so you have so much knowledge and I feel like I could talk to you forever, but where can our listeners find you online? Where do you hang out? Like, where do you post about your offering?
Oh, that would be so fantastic. So I have a blog and website called The Holistic Shebang. Because I do a little bit of everything. This is one of my challenges, being multi-passionate. Yeah. And the same on Instagram, right, at Instagram.com/The Holistic Shebang, and also a Facebook page, the same, right, Facebook.com/The Holistic Shebang.
Perfect. And of course, all of her links will be in the description, and she will be in our insiders group. So you'll be able to connect with her directly. And if you just want to say hi and, learn like from all the wisdom that she has, like I seriously feel like I could talk to you forever. You have so much I could learn.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I could also ask you many questions. We could be on a call for days.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I'm looking forward to your webinar series. That's going to be amazing. I already know it.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Everyone stay tuned, and we will see you guys next time.